The use of standardized tests is improving education in America. How so, you may wonder? By providing feedback, accountability, and preventing social promotion in schools across the nation. W. James Popham, the former president of the American Educational Research Association, defines standardized tests as any test that's administered, scored, and interpreted in a standard predetermined manner. Standardized tests have been used to measure students' achievement since the mid-1800s. However, in 2002, the No Child Left Behind Act instructed that all 50 states must administer these tests annually. According to Procon.org, annual state spending on standardized tests rose from $423 million to $1.1 billion after the No Child Left Behind Act was put into effect. Many of the people who argue that standardized tests are not improving education are simply misguided and are leading United States schools and their students in the wrong direction. The use of standardized testing is, in fact, improving education in America. One example of how standardized tests is improving education is by providing feedback that is useful for not only the students' testing, but school systems as well. In schools, exams play such an important role. The use of standardized testing identifies inequities and achievement gaps among students. Standardized tests are essential for gaining knowledge on how well students are performing on nationwide content standards. George W. Bush, the 43rd President of the United States, once stated, "You don't know unless you measure. What you've got to do is measure to determine where they are, and then you can compare districts and compare states." Students vary on level of preparedness. Sometimes the students may even be at fault. If a student's achievements were not measured through standardized testing, their progress would simply be hard to document. Gregory Cizek, a testing policy specialist, says that tests that are administered today are the most accurate, free of bias, dependable, and efficient tests that a student will ever encounter in his or her schooling. These tests have such a significant role in encouraging and guiding students and teachers. According to an article about the pros of standardized testing, if these tests are not effective in predicting the future performance of students, why would the majority of colleges in the country require them? This statement is accurate because standardized tests have proven to be effective in predicting a student's academic performance in the future. Another way that standardized tests are improving education in America is by providing teacher accountability. Through testing students, researchers are also able to determine whether or not some teachers need guidance on how to become a more effective teacher. According to an article about high-stakes testing, the author shares that these tests have the potential to motivate change in teachers' instruction. The negative results from a standardized test can influence a teacher to look more in depth into his or her teaching strengths and weaknesses, leading to greater outcomes in a student's performance in the future. Jeb Bush, the founder of the Foundation for Excellence in Education, believes that we need to measure the effectiveness of teachers in the classroom. An annual standardized test is the most objective way to determine whether a student is learning a year's worth of knowledge in a year's worth of time. If a classroom of students demonstrates progress from one year to the next on a standardized test, the teacher does deserve credit. Now, another thing that is such a big issue with standardized testing is social promotion. Before standardized tests became into effect, it was not uncommon for students just to be passed from one grade to the next. And it's clear that annual testing has enabled administrators to better accommodate at-risk students. A paper written by the Manhattan Institute for Policy Research informed others that state-mandated standardized tests help prevent social promotion. The practice of allowing students to advance from grade to grade, regardless of their skill mastery. These tests ensure that the students have met the academic standards of their grade level. By using these test scores, students who failed year-end standardized tests were held back, and their scores improved significantly the next year. By taking advantage of the scores that are provided after the tests are taken, at-risk students are no longer overlooked. In the past, they were shuffled from grade to grade, whether they knew the material or not. States are now required to guarantee that the schools tested make what is called adequate yearly progress. By doing this, it was projected that by 2014, 100% of students would be labeled as proficient. Michelle Rhee, a former DC school scout chancellor, proposed in her blog entry, "Accommodate, don't discriminate. How can you diagnose learning problems, move kids to the next level, or hold teachers accountable if you don't measure student progress in an objective, standardized way?" Because of the beneficial qualities that standardized tests offer, the use of standardized tests is improving education in America.